Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining our webinar. Today, we're gonna give a couple more minutes for people to join. So we'll get started in just a couple minutes. So hang tight. Matthew, are you joining us from OKC today?
Yes.
Okay, right on. Okay, everyone. I think we are going to go ahead and get started. We appreciate you joining our webinar today from wherever you are. I am Rich Rushton, COO of Layer 8 Training. The other person you see here is Matthew Jones. He's going to be our presenter today. Before we get started, I kind of just wanted to review some of the, I guess, logistics of our Zoom webinar today. We are recording the webinar, so if you have any coworkers or anyone that you want to forward this content to, you will get a follow-up email with a link to the recording. So feel free to distribute that. We also have in the Zoom webinar toolkit, there is a Q&A panel where you can submit your questions in real time. We're probably not going to answer your questions in real time. We're going to save some time at the end of the webinar to go through those questions. Unless it's something easy, I'll keep my eye on it and probably respond via the little panel there. But we would love to answer your questions, so feel free to submit questions through there. And let's see what else. So yeah, I think that's about it. We're gonna record it and we're gonna save some time for Q&A. Matthew, go ahead and go to the next slide for us. So I'm gonna go ahead and get things started. For those of you that aren't familiar with us, we are Layer 8 Training, and we're the exclusive Citrix training provider in North America. We also manage the global instructor-led training program for Citrix. So what that means is we develop all of the content for the instructor-led courses, and Matthew here is our lead courseware content developer. So he develops the content, also designs all of the hands-on labs that we use for our classes. And during the webinar today, Matthew's going to show you the actual hands-on lab environment that we use in our classes that we teach at Layer 8. Some of the other brands that we offer training for, in addition to Citrix, are Nutanix, Veeam, Checkpoint, and ServiceNow. So if you have any questions ever about that, you can. I'm easy to find. My email is rich@layer8training.com. You can also reach me at info@layer8training.com. So please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions or ever have a training request. Okay, Matthew, next slide, please. Okay, so this is why you are all here is to hear from Matthew Jones. Matthew has been on staff with Layer 8 for Uh, Matthew, you have to remind me.
15 years.
15 years. Okay. That's awesome. So we've actually over the years we've actually moved Matthew around quite a bit. In the good old days when we were doing classroom training, Matthew was here in Southern California. We had him relocate to San Francisco and then later to New York. So he's moved around quite a bit for us. Now he's back home in Oklahoma. We really value Matthew. He's a great instructor, but also super technical savvy. Does all of our lab development. Is our lead courseware developer for Citrix and NetScaler. Uh, the uberAgent content you're going to see today is pretty much all net new content that Matthew has developed. And this content's part of one of the classes that we offer, which I'll show you that at the end of the webinar. But it is a monitoring and troubleshooting course. So we'll give you more information on that. But yeah, I'm going to turn the time over to Matthew Jones, and please don't hesitate to submit any questions you have through the Q&A panel. So Matthew, it's all yours.
Yep. Awesome. Thank you, Rich. It's always fun to do these things because you get to hang out with Rich and he says great things about me. So always fun to jump in and be a part of this. Plus, I love Citrix technology and the cool things that we can do with it. And used to we talk about Citrix and it's either CVAD or it's NetScaler. And what's really nice is kind of over the past couple years, we've actually seen that kind of expand out. And there's now some new pieces, a part of the Citrix family. So excited to jump into this webinar and talk about one of those pieces, which a lot of people have been really excited about, and that is uberAgent. So this is a technology that was acquired by Citrix a couple years ago and has really kind of worked its way into the CVAD and somewhat the NetScaler family. And what this is a lightweight monitoring solution. And so if you're familiar with Citrix, we've got Citrix Director, you've got your NetScaler console, or we used to have the ADM for application delivery management. And one of the big things is we've got all this stuff out there. What is going on? And so we want to use Director to kind of look at sessions. We use the NetScaler console to look at what's going on with the NetScaler, what's going through the NetScaler. But can we get a little bit more granular? Can we get better details? Can we get more information about the client devices connecting to Citrix? Can we get more information about the resource on the back end? And that's exactly what uberAgent is designed to go in and do. And so this is designed to go in and gather up statistics. So you're monitoring and analytics. And the analytics comes from you're dumping these statistics off somewhere. Okay, I'll just be generic and say somewhere. And then you're looking at what does this data tell us? Okay? Now, we're going to be talking about Splunk, and we're going to be talking about Splunk dashboards. And what is really powerful about this is with uberAgent, you're getting the agent to gather up the statistics, you're dumping them off to Splunk, and Citrix is providing these Splunk dashboards to give you some really powerful and granular details about what's happening within the environment. And so this is a really neat way to go in and do this. Here you've got this idea about all sorts of stuff that's out there. Okay? If you're coming from a CVAD background, if you're working with Citrix DAS, you've got resources. Okay? Single session OS, multi-session OS, remote PC access. This is our traditional stuff with the VDA. We're very interested in how well it's performing, if we have any abnormalities, things like that. We're also looking at the workload that it's running on. How is it performing? Memory, CPU, disk storage, networking. And so there's a lot of statistics out there And uberAgent is designed to use a very lightweight agent. You'll see that in the demo here in a minute. Gather up these statistics and then be able to aggregate them for us. And then we have dashboards can go in and look at the user experience, call it UXM, user experience monitoring. We've also got endpoint security. So there's a lot of information about what is happening that's being gathered up by this system and then being presented to us so that we can jump in and actually see what's going on. And so you wind up with dashboards inside of Splunk to go in and look at the user experience. We can see the machines. These are the things we have the VDA installed on. You've got user sessions. You've got the applications they're connecting to. How is that process going? And so we've got everything from inventory, where we can actually see the machines that we have uberAgent installed on. We've got experience scores to let us know what's good, bad, or otherwise. You can see down here, this comes from the security side of it, or the ESA dashboard, but you've got green, yellow, and red. And so as we look at how well we are secured, what threats we're seeing, we can go in and actually get a really nice at a glance dashboard to hopefully influence the decisions and things that we're making, and in a lot of cases, influence them proactively. Okay? It's easy to go in and say, well, now people are saying the environment's working bad. We need to go figure out what's going on. It's a lot better to actually have actionable analytics that tell us things are good, things are trending to be not so good, or we actually have issues. And we can see that, we can respond without necessarily needing users to jump in and start telling us they're having problems. So this is a great addition to what we do with CVAD, and we can also apply this to a lot of other pieces within the environment. Now, the way that this works, what we're going to do is we're going to go in and talk about Splunk. I'm going to show you Splunk and kind of the setup that we have. Some people are not necessarily big fans of Splunk, or they're going to say it's expensive or things like that. There's other options. Right? You've got Elasticsearch, you've got Apache Kafka, you've got Microsoft ADX. So when we're talking about uberAgent, this is a lightweight piece of software on an end-user device that's gathering up these statistics and dumping them off, like I said, somewhere. Okay? Now, we're going to go in and use Splunk. If you use Splunk, you also get the included dashboards that I just kind of showed you a couple of screenshots of. And so it's kind of a nice, cohesive environment. If you want to use something else, you've got these statistics, you're dumping them off, and then you kind of need to develop the dashboards, or there's some other people out in the community that have got dashboards for different products that are out there. And so depending on what you're trying to do, this can be all ready to go on Splunk. This can be, here's a bunch of data, and then you kind of have to refine it. The idea that we can get this data somehow is what we're really taking a look at. So we're going to take a look at Splunk. We're going to take a look at using uberAgent and then seeing some of the dashboards that go along with it. The idea is we're gathering up data, dumping it off somewhere. And so we can do that to be able to aggregate these statistics and then be able to analyze them to figure out what's happening within the environment. So what you've got is you've got several different operating systems that we can use where you've got the uberAgent. So we can install that on Mac OS. You've got your hypervisors. You've got your Windows operating systems. They've got some beta Linux options in there. If any of you are using Elux or the Unicon software, when you go in and put your images together, there's actually an uberAgent component, so you can actually grab statistics from those environments. And then we're dumping them off, and in this case, with Splunk. Could be an on-prem Splunk. You could be using Splunk in the cloud. But we're looking at gathering up these statistics, dumping them off somewhere, and then being able to go in and analyze them. If you're coming from a CVAD environment, and if you've taken training with us before, you've probably seen a diagram like this. So this is kind of your Citrix architecture. your user layer, internal, external users, the devices they're using to connect to the environment. You've got NetScaler for remote access. Maybe you've just got storefront for your internal users. You've got delivery controllers, resources with your VDA. These are the things that are important to Citrix admins. And so in the CVAD environment, we have the ability to go in and install this uberAgent software and gather up statistics from all of these pieces. And then it allows us to be able to look at what is happening on the back end. How are our desktops performing? How are our servers performing? How are things going with the delivery controller? We can even take a look at the NetScaler. How is the NetScaler doing? What are we seeing statistic-wise? What are we seeing session-wise? And so you've got a pretty nice Citrix architecture from a CVAD standpoint, and we now have access to uberAgent. And so with uberAgent, we can go in and gather up all these statistics and then dump them off to Splunk and then be able to use the dashboards to see what's going on. And like I said, if you're using Splunk, it comes with, we've got these apps. I'll show you how to install them and what we can do with them. But they've got over 70 pre-built dashboards, the things that we're interested in. So what do we have machine inventory-wise? What do we have session-wise? What do we have gateway and gateway performance-wise? And so we can see a lot of that information thanks to an architecture and these the uberAgent software, and then using something like Splunk to go in and consolidate that information. You can even go in, and then I showed you a minute ago, being able to go in and actually look at experience scores. We can see good stuff, medium conditions, we can see bad stuff. And so it uses this experience score to kind of give you information, and it can color code it so you can instantly see this stuff looks good, this is concerning. And so you get this across all of these different dashboards when you're using Splunk with the uberAgent dashboards. Yep. Now, I know that sounds like a lot of different moving pieces, a lot of theory, and it is. But the best way to go in and actually see this is jumping into a demo. So that's what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what this looks like. So if you've taken any classes with us over the last 2.5 years, this is kind of what our lab environment looks like. I've got mine adjusted a little bit because this isn't a class, but if you actually take a class, you've got your lab environment. We also have lab steps, and they actually get embedded right on the screen, so you can actually see step by step how to perform your labs. So our lab guide is actually included right there next to the labs themselves. I'm using a lab system to go in and do this demo, so it looks somewhat like what you would see in our class. I just don't have the instructions because I'm kind of making this stuff up as I go. So you get to see this live. You get to see a little bit of what this looks like. Case in point, this is a Hyper-V machine. I've got Hyper-V Manager down here. Again, very common in our courses to go in and have an infrastructure laid out. So Active Directory. In this case, we've got CVAD. So there is a delivery controller and storefront. We've got some resources. So we've got a server. So I got server 001 and 002. I've got a desktop to represent a Windows 11 machine. And so as a working CVAD environment, here we go. Right? I've got a workstation. This is a Windows 11, represents a client that we can go in and do some demos with. The big thing that's going to be different here from a traditional CVAD class is I've got a Splunk server. And so I just grabbed a server 2022 machine. I've gone in and already installed Splunk, so we don't have to go through that process. But I'll show you what that looks like. And so what I've got is this is Splunk, or this is a Splunk server. I've installed Splunk, and if anybody wants to do demos and stuff like that on your own, there is a trial version that you can get. And so a lot of people are going to say, well, we don't have Splunk, or we're not going to pay for Splunk. That's fine. If any of you are curious about what you see today, you can go out and actually get the Splunk trial. You can get the software I'm going to show you from Citrix. You get an entitlement for that in your CVAT environment or in your My Citrix account. And you can go in and actually set this up and actually look to see, is this something that you're interested in? And then, of course, as Rich mentioned, we've got a specific monitoring and troubleshooting course that's going to show you how to set up and do pretty much exactly what I show for you today. So if I come in here and launch Splunk Enterprise, it's going to open up in my web browser, come up here and give me my login screen. When I install the trial version, I set up my user account. And then when I get logged in, this is pretty much Splunk out of the box. Right? You've got your apps, you've got your data collectors, things like that. And so this is just a out of the box trial version of Splunk. Okay? Now, what does that have to do with uberAgent? Not really anything on its own. Okay? uberAgent is going to come into play when you go and actually get some software from your My Citrix account. So I've gone in and done that. What you'll get is you'll get a zip file. So I've got that here. And I went in and got, this is the 7.5.1 version. Some people might be using 7.4.2, whatever version is going to work. I'll explain some of the nuances of that a little bit later. But what I can do is I can unzip this. And inside of this zip file that comes out of your My Citrix account, you're going to have some TGZ files, these down here. And these are the uberAgent apps for Splunk. So this is where we get the ability to go in and use the dashboards in a Splunk environment. Right? Now, really easy to go in and kind of set this up. What you've got is you've got your apps. You've got the ability to come down here and say you want to manage apps in Splunk. And it then shows you all of the included apps that come with Splunk. And then what we're going to do is come over here and say, let's install some apps from file. And you can, drop and drag or browse. I'll just browse to the folder I just showed you. I unzipped everything in here. And here's these TGZ files. So I'll go in and grab each of these. So there's one, and there's 4 of these that we're going to throw in here. Here's the second one. And a third one. And so really to go in and kind of get this up and running, all I've needed to do is to have Splunk and then get these TGZ files or this zip file from Citrix and then upload the TGZ files. And so now I've got the dashboards and the interactivity, the cool charts and graphs that we looked at in the PowerPoint. I've now got that functionality in Splunk. Now, I'm going to go in and kick off a reboot real quick. So I'm going to come in here, tell Splunk to go in and restart. And then that is going to activate those apps. Now, while it does that, I want to talk a little bit more about the zip file. There's 2 really key things in here that you'll want to pay attention to. There is a group policy folder. This is really nice. Your agent is going to need to be configured. I'm going to show you that here in a moment. And what you might do is you might want to go in and push out that configuration using GPOs. And so you've got the ADML and the ADMX files from Citrix. You can go in and roll that out in group policy and then say, pull down this configuration. And so now you've got uberAgent installed and your GPO configures it for you. Okay? So if you need that, you can go in and do this here. Also, when we're talking about configuring the agent, we've got the actual endpoint software. And so if we want to go in and install this on something, we actually have the software to be able to go in and do that. I'll show you that here in a second as well. Now, here's the nice thing. If you are using a modern version of CVAT, okay, so something like 2507 LTSR or the cumulative updates that go along with it, When you install the VDA, it installs the agent for you. And so for our CVAD environment, all the CVAD stuff is kind of already taken care of. You've installed the VDA and you get uberAgent. Okay? If you've got something else that doesn't have the VDA installed, then they've included the software. Okay? I'll give you a couple of examples of that here in a minute. But if I jump back here, Splunk has rebooted. And so I can come in and log in. And then what I've got is I've got the apps that I've installed presenting dashboards. I'll have the user experience monitor dashboard and the endpoint security dashboard. And so once this renders, here's my apps. And then I've got these links right here. Now, I could open these up. They don't do anything because I don't have anything really configured to dump data off to Splunk yet. But we'll come back and we'll actually take a look at the dashboards here shortly. The other thing to pay attention to is, as a part of configuring Splunk, you're going to be dumping off data, and you need to go in and set up the process of receiving that data. And so you can do this with TCP. You can go in and use this with HTTP. So I've already configured an HTTP event collector. And so when I dump the statistics off, to go in and kind of as a security mechanism, we don't necessarily want to go in and just accept all data. And so we actually use a REST API token. And you have to have the proper token configured on the endpoint agent to dump data off to Splunk. So when I set this up, I can go in and actually see that here. So it creates this token. I can go in and see it. Also, when I need to use it, and I'll do that in a minute, very easy to come in here and copy it. And then when I set up a client device, I'm able to go in and say, talk to Splunk, and here's the token. And that kind of ties everything together. So just to kind of show you what this looks like, I've got a workstation here. So this is a endpoint device. A user would come in. This is where they're logging in. This is where they're connecting to storefront or the gateway, authenticating, enumerating, and then setting up their ICA connection from. In a corporate environment, you might want to know what's happening on this device. Therefore, it needs an uberAgent. So like I said, we've got access to the software. So if I come in here, here's my zipped file. I can come in and pull up the endpoint directory. And then I've got installers. Now, I'm going to go in here and use the English version of this. Not going to tell you how many times I've just jumped in here and said, oh, 64-bit, yeah, I'm good to go. Then I wind up with German instructions or Japanese instructions. So I'm going to go with the English instructions. Like I said, this is a lightweight agent, so it's a very, very small install. I'm going to come in here, say launch the installer, I accept the license agreement, put it in this directory, and then it's ready to install. And lightweight means small. So when I hit install, 2, 3, 4 seconds at most, and now I have the uberAgent software on this endpoint device to go in and gather up statistics. Now, what is it going to do with those statistics? I'm going to run the configuration tool. And this is where I'm going to tell this agent what to do with the statistics. Okay? So we're going to go in and put these in Splunk. Like I said, there's some other options, but you might have to go in and build out the dashboards to view all this data. With Splunk, we've got those dashboards. We can use HTTP or TCP. We're going to use HTTP collector. And I'm going to say dump this off to my Splunk server. So tell it where my Splunk server is. Whoops. And I've got a specific port set up. So I come in and say, here's the server and the port that we're going to use. And then I've got my HTTP collector configured, and it has a specific token that goes along with it. I'm going to paste that in here. So if I paste in that token, now this device is configured to grab these statistics and dump them off to Splunk. And Splunk is set up to actually accept that we want this token's applicable data. Now, down here, you've got your config destination. I want to configure this device that I'm running this on. So I say apply config locally. In here, you go in and get your license file. Now, a couple things to watch out for. Number one, if you've got a CVAT entitlement, then you can get access to this. And what it's going to do is it's going to go in and on a device that you've installed the VDA, it's going to talk to your delivery controller, verify that you're using an appropriate license, which if any of you are familiar with it, we've gone through all sorts of changes to licensing over the last 10 months. But if you're using the newer version of the software, I think you need like the cumulative update 1. It's got an uberAgent that knows how to use LAS through your delivery controller, and those things are already licensed. Okay. This is an endpoint device. It's got a Citrix workspace app instead of a VDA, so it needs a license file. And so you go into your My Citrix account, you can get that, and to license it on something that doesn't have a VDA, you go and get what's called a blob file. And so you create that in your My Citrix account. You can put it out on a share, which is what I've done. And so I've got my blob file, and then I can say use all of this. And what it does is it takes configuration, writes it locally, pulls down that license file, and then you'll see down here it starts the service, looks to make sure I got everything configured, service starts. And so this device is then configured to grab statistics and dump them off to whatever I've configured up here. You can also run into a situation where you don't necessarily want to go in and do that on every single device. So what you can do is instead, you can create a config archive. And so what you're able to do is say, these are the settings that we want. Let's zip this up, put it on a file share, and then for all these other devices, let's say go get the config from that share. And so we can go in and make this available in mass without having to configure this every single time. Because trust me, I don't want to go in and have to copy that REST token every single time I need it. That gets put into that archive for you, and then you just point to it. Okay? I'll show you that here in a second. We can do that with Citrix policies. We can also do that with GPOs. So I mentioned that they've got the group policy stuff. We can go in and roll out a GPO that says, here's the config archive. Machine boots up. It's got a uberAgent software on it. GPO says, here's how you need to work. And then that will go in and get that uberAgent configured to dump statistics off to our environment. Yep. So just to show you what that looks like, if I jump over here, this is a delivery controller. Yep. I've got the uberAgent installed on it and everything already, but I've also got those ADM templates. And so I can come in here and take a look at group policy. I've also got Citrix Studio. I'll fire that up and we'll jump in and take a look at it. But what I've got is a GPO, and I've gone in, brought in these settings, and through those admin templates, what I've configured is a setting that says central config management, and it says where's your config file path. And so I was just showing you the installer, and I could say let's do a config archive, and then wherever I store that, I can have a GPO that says go get that thing, and then you boot up with a GPO, and you're able to go in and pull down that configuration. And so we can roll that out using group policy if we want. Over here, I've got Citrix Web Studio. Well, maybe I can get in here. Well, oh, nice. May have to reboot this machine. But what will happen is there is a set of Citrix settings. I'll just tell you what they are. There is a setting that says, do you want to enable uberAgent data collection? And so I can go in and say, yes, I want that. There's also a setting that says, do you want to enable uberAgent statistics in director? And so you're using the uberAgent on your VDA machines, and you can grab additional information. Do you want to dump that off to director? The third setting is, where's your config archive? And so I set up this archive, I put it out on a network share, and then I can have these machines point to it. And so I can roll that out as a Citrix policy. And when I say Citrix policy, we can do that in Studio or Web Studio. We can also do that with a GPO on the Citrix policy settings, not necessarily on the uberAgent settings. So two different ways that we can go in and configure Citrix policies in general. The uberAgent settings could be configured either way. And then what this is going to do is this is going to give us devices set up and ready to go in and talk to Splunk. So if I come back here and take a look at Splunk, what we've got is the user experience. And this is going to go in and pull up my dashboards. And I don't necessarily have a lot of data going on. I haven't done a lot from a demo perspective. And so I don't have devices going in and grabbing data and dumping it off to Splunk very much. So when I come in here, I'm probably not going to see much of anything. But you can see the statistics and things that would be available if I had a larger environment and more users and actual live traffic. I've also got up here with machines, I can come in and do a machine inventory. So what is it we can actually see? And then what's going to happen is these different machines that have either a VDA or that I've installed the agent on, they're going to go in and dump off that data to Splunk. And then I should be able to go in and actually see that information here. And so I would be able to go in and actually see hardware models. In my case, these are virtual machines, so it would say they're all virtual machines. But I can see my operating systems. I can see that I have Server 2022. I have Windows 11 Pro in here. And then the data that it's going to give me is going to be very clickable. And so I'm going to be able to go in and launch a query and say, I want to know what my virtual machines are. And then it will actually give me a list. So I can see, what virtual machines are in the environment. I can go in and see what my Windows 11 machines are. And so I can go in and actually query back information about what my environment looks like. Now, like I said, I've got some weird issue here where it doesn't want me to log in. So I'm going to bounce this machine. One other thing that I can do is when I go in and set this up, I've also got a NetScaler. So when I want to generate some actual traffic statistics, I can go to a NetScaler gateway. I can log in, launch things. I get an ICA proxy through the gateway, and I want to see that information. They don't actually have a uberAgent that you would install on an actual NetScaler. Instead, you use your delivery controller, which you would install the uberAgent on, and you would edit the config file and you would tell it, I've got a NetScaler, and the delivery controller actually proxies that data on behalf of the NetScaler. So the delivery controller reaches out, grabs those statistics, and then its uberAgent dumps that information off to Splunk. And so you can go in and set that up, and then you're getting gateway information as well as your CVAT information and your traditional Windows servers. And so that is a neat thing that you can get from a big picture standpoint. Okay? Yes, you could be going in and using NetScaler Console. You could be going in and usually when we talk about NetScaler Console, we're talking about HDX Insight. A lot of really good information there. If you take the monitoring and troubleshooting course, we actually go in and take a look at how to tie that in with Director. So from a CVAD perspective, you're looking in Director, you're looking at sessions, and it'd also be nice to know your gateway information. Really cool thing. That's been around for a while. We actually get hands-on with that in that course. If, right now, we're not talking about Director and all that stuff, we're talking about Splunk. If we're using Splunk, if we're monitoring our environment with Splunk, and we're using uberAgent and seeing our statistics that way, your HDX gateway information could be helpful in there as well. And so you've got the ability to grab those statistics and have your delivery controller dump them off. And then in Splunk, we can see our VDA resources, our infrastructure resources, and our gateway. And so that's kind of a really nice big picture piece that goes along with all of this. So hopefully this machine boots up and decides that it wants to behave. If not, still got cool things in store as well. And so what I can do is I want to go in and do some stuff. So I'm just going to use, this is Remote Desktop Connection Manager. I'm going to say log into, and this is going to set up a RDP connection. That's how we interact with our servers within our labs. But it's going to go in and set up a RDP connection, which will be treated as a session. So there's memory, CPU being affected. There's a session, even though it's RDP. Actually, in our labs, all these are set up. They all log on as administrator. Got it? So I've got one user, I've got multiple sessions, and so I'm generating that outside of Citrix, but those are statistics. And so we're going in and say, grab these statistics and then dump them off to Splunk. So it's kind of a little bit of a unique way to come in and generate some traffic. And the goal is I want to come in and actually populate these dashboards with information. You'll see here when I pull this up, machine inventory, what have we seen in the last day? I can also go in, this is where Splunk gets really kind of powerful, is your ability to go in and look at certain times or time frames. So I can go in and say, let's take a look at the last 1 hour. So instead of the day, which would be 23 and a half hours of nothing, and then, oh, look, there was some sessions. I can now go in and say, well, look, here's 45 minutes of nothing, and then we can look at what's happened within probably the tail end of this. And so you've got the ability to go in, filter the timings and things. So like I said, all of these are virtual machines. I should be able to pull up exactly what we've got operating system wise. Some of those may not necessarily be reporting, but I can go in and say I want to see what these virtual machines are. And it tells me, here's workstation 001. And so I can go in and say, I've got workstation 001. I can see operating system and, it's on Hyper-V. So, the CPU and things like that are not necessarily that relevant. But if this was an enterprise and I had, 100 different types of client devices, I can go in and see that. I can see my client devices. I can sort these by that to try to find things. So this is machine inventory, and it's literally machine inventory. Searchable, like I said, it's clickable. I can go in and get more details about kind of any of these different things. Also, if my environment decides that it wants to behave, I can come in here and actually set up a Citrix connection. So I can come into my workstation. I can say, let's connect to a gateway. I can come in here and authenticate to the gateway. And then what this is going to do is, number one, it's going to authenticate me. Number two, it enumerates my resources. And then when I say I want to launch the resource, what it's going to do is it's going to involve the gateway. It's going to involve the STAs, all of that good stuff to do ICA proxy. So I'm setting up an ICA connection to the NetScaler through the gateway and then getting proxied to one of my servers on the back end. And so we should actually see a successful session launch, which everybody should be familiar with. But there's statistics that go along with that. And that's really what we're here to go in and see. So I've got an app. I can go in and say, let's launch a desktop. Just for fun, I can come down here. This is the hypervisor. I can go in and open up a web browser here. So now I've got a second user device. This one doesn't actually have the endpoint agent on it, but I can log in as a second user. And then I can go in and get some more traffic. So should be able to enumerate resources. We'll just launch the good old calculator. For some reason, it seems like that's what I always do my demos with, partly because these things show up alphabetical order, and it's just like first one on the list. So bunch of instances of launching calculator. So what's the most popular app in my environment? Well, if you look at my uberAgent statistics, it's going to tell you the calculator. Right? Sometimes that's a really important thing. We can get some of that information inside of Director. You can also go in, and if we're using uberAgent, those are statistics, application launches, application behavior, and even application performance. And so we can go in and actually quantify what we're doing. And in my case, I quantify it as I launch the calculator a lot. But if we come back in here and take a look at Splunk, I can come in and actually see a lot more information. And so I should see that I have more machines, more data, more examples. So I can come in and take a look at user sessions. I've launched some sessions with RDP. I've launched sessions with ICA. And then we should be able to see some of those totals. Right? And so it'll come in and give me some statistics. So over the last day, I haven't done anything. Over the last 20, 30 minutes, and then you can go in and refine this and say, let's focus more on what's happened in the last hour. And now I'm zooming in to really look at what we've done during our time together. Right? And so we should be able to go in and kind of see charts and graphs that are going to give us a little bit more of a look at this. Right? So I've got some users. I've got sessions. I've got max number of sessions I've had, and charts and graphs showing that over time. I've got my login data. I can actually see where these sessions are. Right? So I've got several sessions on server 001. I can see my different users and how many sessions they've got. So now I'm able to get actionable information thanks to uberAgent and the Splunk dashboards. Now I want to show you one more cool thing here. Okay? This might be cool, okay? Except it's one guy, one lab environment, a few statistics, not necessarily a lot, okay? I can't go in and represent an entire enterprise environment. To help with that, Citrix has actually put together a Splunk app called an event generator. And so what you can do is if you want to play around with this and build a proof of concept, you can install Splunk. You can install the uberAgent apps on Splunk, and then without worrying about any of the client device stuff, if you just want to see what statistics there are, you can install this event generator, and it will go in and generate Citrix type of statistics, stick them in here, and give us the charts and graphs. So if you're trying to figure out what information is available, this is a great tool to be able to go in and do that. And so what I can do is I can come in here and say, let's add in this app. And then what will happen is, also this is a separate download. So I downloaded the zip file. And then there's separately, they've got the tar.gz file for the event generator. And so you get that, bring that in, and then there'll be a reboot. The nice thing is, once I reboot, this Splunk app is just going to start sticking Citrix data into Splunk. And then we can see charts and graphs in a little bit of a different light. Watch out. That's really cool. Definitely want to do that in a proof of concept environment. So this is a lab, not that big of a deal. When we set this up in our courses, you get a certain amount of time to play around with it. You're not really going to go in and break it. Kind of a nice thing for doing a demo like this, just off the cuff. Really nice when I'm doing stuff with a proof of concept. Okay, you would not want to run the event generator in your production environment because you've got a bunch of valuable data. and a bunch of made up data. So if you build a proof of concept, you can get the trial version of Splunk, and then you can get this event generator, and then you can see what these statistics would look like for an actual enterprise environment. Right? So I like this. It cuts out a lot of the, I have to go set up the environment. I have to get my licensing and all that. No, it's all self-contained in Splunk. So you can do it with just one server. You've got Splunk, you've got the dashboards, and then you've got the event generator. And yeah, there was a numbering mismatch in there. It said this was event generator 7.4. We're now using uberAgent 7.5. It'll still work. It'll grab that data, dump it in there, and then it'll give you charts and graphs and statistics, and you get a much clearer picture of what this can do. And so anytime that we're trying to play around and actually see, is this good? Can I use this? Would this answer a lot of questions we've struggled with? I think using the event generator with this really helps you see what the product can do. And so that is available in your My Citrix downloads. You can add that with your Splunk dashboards and really get some powerful information. Okay? Also, it just rebooted, so it just now started. But this is actually going to be very helpful. And then if you wanted to, you could actually keep this going for up to 2 hours. And it will just continually go in and keep adding statistics to Splunk. But now when I come back, instead of, here's the stuff we can see and no real data, I should actually get a little bit more charts and graphs, probably even get some of the user experience numbers. So this will very quickly populate with red, blue, and green, or red, yellow, and green, and the numbers that go along with it. And so if you want to play around with it, this is a great way to go in and be able to see that without needing an entire enterprise to provide you a bunch of data. Also, it's just generating Citrix statistics. So a bunch of gateways, bunch of users, bunch of servers they're running on. It's not real data, but it's throwing it in there based off of it. So we can go in and look at pretty much anything that we want. So how is the NetScaler gateway performing? And so even though I didn't just go in and log in a bunch of users through the gateway, it's just dumping those statistics in there. So now I should be able to go in and see, oh, look, we've got ICA sessions. Right? And so, yeah, I set up some of these, and then the gateway or the event generator started adding to that. And so you can view that information, your data throughput over time. And so it will start populating this. I have to be careful because in a lab environment like this, it can be a little bit overwhelming on the server. So my responsiveness may go down as I play around with it. But that's why I say do that in a proof of concept, not in a production environment. But it really lets you go in and actually see all these cool things. Like I said, there's over 70 pre-configured dashboards in here. So you can go in and actually use this to kind of look at what would it be telling me without having to go and generate all of the in-user statistics that go along with it. So with that being said, okay, and I know we could all like go in and stare at pretty charts and graphs and things like that. Here you'll see now I've got like what is that, 12 users. Okay? I don't have 12 users, but it's generating data for that. So I'm not going to go in and show you, the next 20 minutes of look at, charts and graphs and things, but definitely something you can go in and kind of play around with on your own if that interests you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand it back to Rich, and we'll go in and get things wrapped up.
All right, Matthew. Nice job. Nothing like a real-time demo, right? You never know what's going to happen. Nice job. So I've been answering pretty much all the questions in real time that we got. There is one more out there from Mark. And this might be more of a question for the Citrix product team. Uh, can you see the question, Matthew, or do you want me to read it?
No, I can see it.
Okay.
For everybody else, the question was, has Citrix mentioned any plans to provide integration with other observability platforms? Specifically, he's got Datadog, Dynatrace, New Relic on there. I can't necessarily speak for Citrix on that. I know that that is a big thing that a lot of people have asked for. So I believe that there are some rumors from within Citrix that they are going to be working with making this available for other platforms besides Splunk. Also, kind of as a community, there are people out there. If you go look at places like Reddit and such, the community, other admins like ourselves, also kind of taking that into account. And for some of the supported platforms, they're looking at sharing their dashboards and what they're using. Also, some people that want to go deeper with Splunk, they're also sharing Splunk um, dashboards to go along with what you get from uberAgent.
All right, thank you. Yeah, we try to be careful with answering those types of questions because we don't want to get misquoted with, oh yeah, Citrix is working on this, but so yeah, we tread a little lightly on those types of answers. But okay, well, we're gonna wrap up. We're coming up right on the hour here, so. Again, we really appreciate you taking the time to join our webinar and listen to me and Matthew. We appreciate you as Citrix customers and partners, and I know that we've probably worked directly with a lot of you in the past, and we're gonna kind of start doing more webinars this year. Matthew's actually working on a security course that is going to include like the new eLux Scout content, correct, Matthew?
Yep.
Yeah, so we'll probably schedule a webinar for that, or we'll be able to show some of those features and hands-on labs. And again, we're gonna follow up this webinar with a link to the recording that'll probably go out in a couple of days. And in the meantime, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach us at info@layer8training.com, or you can email me directly at rich@layer8training.com. And Matthews is first initial last name, so M Jones at layer8training.com. And I know Matthew has an open door policy when he has time, he'll respond. So again, thanks again. We appreciate your time and look forward to seeing you in an upcoming webinar, or better yet, in one of our training sessions. So thanks again. Take care, everyone.